We often hear you just need more protein. But if that were the whole story, we could just dump protein powder on everything and muscles would magically appear. Clearly, it's not that simple. It's not just how much protein you eat, but when you eat it and how your body actually uses it, that determines whether it goes toward building lean muscle or simply gets burned for energy. To really understand when to eat protein for better muscle growth, we have to zoom out and look at how your body decides whether to build up or break down muscle tissue. And this is not just about people who lift weights. This is about everyone, whether you're an athlete chasing performance, someone over 50 trying to avoid muscle loss, or just a person who wants to stay strong and healthy for decades. Let's start with what protein actually does once you swallow it. When you eat protein, your digestive system breaks it down into amino acids, the building blocks of muscle. Those amino acids enter your bloodstream, and then your body faces a choice. Should we use these amino acids to repair, grow, and strengthen muscle tissue, or should we burn them for energy because other systems are demanding fuel? That decision depends on timing, hormonal state, and physical activity. So timing isn't just a nutrition fad, it's rooted in how your body's biochemistry prioritizes tasks. Distributing protein intake evenly throughout the day rather than loading it all into one meal is one of the most overlooked but powerful strategies for supporting muscle growth and preventing muscle loss. When you eat a large amount of protein only at dinner, you're giving your body a single anabolic signal in a 24-hour period. That means your muscles have just one window to receive the message that raw materials are available for repair and growth. In contrast, when you divide that protein into balanced portions at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you give your body multiple chances to activate muscle protein synthesis. This repeated stimulation matters because muscle tissue is constantly in a state of turnover, breaking down and building up in cycles. And if you go many hours without protein, your body tips toward the breakdown side of the equation. Most people wake up in a fasted state, having gone 8 to 10 hours without food. If your first meaningful serving of protein doesn't come until late in the day, your muscles spend a huge portion of your waking hours without the amino acids they need to repair or grow. Even if your total daily protein is high, a single spike at night does not fully compensate for all those missed opportunities to trigger synthesis earlier in the day. Research on both young athletes and older adults shows that spreading protein evenly improves lean mass retention and strength gains compared to skewed intake patterns, even when the total amount of protein is the same. The mechanism is fairly straightforward. Muscle protein synthesis has a ceiling. Eating more than about 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein in one sitting does not dramatically boost the response beyond that level. The excess amino acids are either oxidized for energy or converted into other compounds rather than being used to build more muscle. By distributing protein into multiple meals, you create several separate occasions where the muscle-building machinery is fully switched on. Each of these pulses allows the amino acid leucine, which serves as a critical signal for growth, to hit the threshold that tells your body to build rather than break down tissue. Skipping this strategy is a bit like watering a plant once a week with a huge flood of water rather than giving it moderate amounts daily. The soil can only absorb so much at once, and the rest simply drains away unused. When people deliberately include a protein-rich breakfast, they not only stop overnight catabolism, but also set a metabolic tone for the day that helps control appetite and energy levels. Midday protein, whether through lunch or a shake, reinforces that anabolic environment. Finally, evening protein continues the repair process after daily activity or training, and if spaced properly from bedtime, it can even support overnight synthesis. For older individuals whose muscles are less sensitive to growth signals, this even distribution becomes even more important because they require a stronger stimulus at each meal to trigger synthesis at all. Studies comparing people who ate most of their protein at dinner versus those who split it evenly found that only the evenly spaced group gained or preserved lean muscle, despite both groups eating the same amount overall. The simple takeaway is that if you want to build or maintain muscle efficiently, do not let large chunks of your day pass without a meaningful serving of protein. By giving your body 3 or 4 well-timed doses of 30 to 40 grams instead of one massive intake, you align with how your physiology naturally responds to amino acids, creating multiple growth opportunities and far better long-term results. Consuming protein within 3 to 5 hours after training takes advantage of a unique period when your muscles are most sensitive to the raw materials they need for repair and growth. When you perform resistance exercise or any intense physical activity, you create microscopic damage in muscle fibers, and this controlled damage is exactly what stimulates your body to rebuild those fibers stronger and thicker. Exercise activates certain molecular pathways inside muscle cells that increase their ability to take in amino acids from the bloodstream and assemble them into new proteins. This heightened sensitivity doesn't last indefinitely. It rises sharply right after training and gradually tapers off over the next several hours, which is why providing a solid dose of protein during this window makes such a difference. If you wait too long to eat, your body still repairs the damage eventually, but the process is slower and less efficient because the cellular machinery has already started returning to its baseline state. People often imagine this as a tiny 30-minute post-workout window of opportunity, but research now shows it is much more flexible, lasting up to 3, sometimes even 5 hours depending on your overall energy status and training intensity. This doesn't mean you have to run to your locker with a shaker cup the instant you rack your last weight, but it does mean that scheduling your next protein-rich meal somewhere in that time frame consistently supports better recovery. The goal is to saturate your bloodstream with amino acids during the period when your muscles are actively seeking them, because that is when the signaling pathways responsible for muscle protein synthesis are firing at full speed. The amino acid leucine, in particular, acts as a switch that flips the body from a breakdown state into a build state. If you've trained hard but fail to provide leucine-rich protein, you send the stimulus for adaptation but withhold the building blocks required to carry it out. When you do provide those amino acids soon after exercise, your body immediately uses them to repair damaged fibers, increase muscle size, and strengthen connective tissue. This timing principle applies whether you are lifting weights, doing high-intensity interval training, or performing endurance exercise that significantly stresses your muscles. It is not limited to competitive athletes. It applies to anyone who wants to gain strength, preserve lean mass, or simply recover faster from physical effort. For people training more than once per day or doing long, intense sessions, this strategy becomes even more critical because recovery windows are shorter and nutrient support must be reliable to maintain performance. The amount of protein required during this period does not need to be excessive. Around 25 to 40 grams of high-quality protein is enough for most adults to maximize the anabolic response. More than that does not necessarily amplify muscle building in a single meal because the body's synthesis rate reaches a plateau, but less than that may fail to reach the threshold necessary to fully switch on repair pathways. What matters is consistency over days and weeks, not just a single shake or snack. People who repeatedly miss this post-workout window often experience slower progress in muscle growth and strength, even if their total daily protein is adequate, because they are never aligning nutrient availability with the period of highest demand. In contrast, those who routinely eat protein within that 3 to 5 hour window after training tend to see better adaptations, faster recovery, and less soreness because the repair process starts immediately and continues efficiently throughout the day. This approach works hand in hand with total daily protein intake and balanced distribution, creating an optimal environment where your training stimulus and nutrition strategy reinforce each other rather than working out of sync. Starting the day with 30 to 40 grams of protein is one of the simplest and most effective ways to halt overnight muscle breakdown and jumpstart recovery. When you wake up, your body has been fasting for 8 to 10 hours, sometimes longer, and during that time, it has been drawing on internal amino acid stores to keep vital processes running. This includes taking amino acids from muscle tissue, which slowly erodes lean mass if it continues unopposed. A high-protein breakfast immediately provides your body with the building blocks it needs to stop this catabolic process and shift into an anabolic or growth-oriented state. Many people either skip breakfast entirely or eat something high in carbohydrates and low in protein like toast, cereal, or fruit. While those foods can provide quick energy, they do little to replenish amino acids or stimulate muscle protein synthesis. By including a significant amount of high-quality protein first thing in the morning, you trigger the pathways that tell your body it's time to repair and rebuild rather than break down tissue. Research shows that this morning protein intake sets the tone for the entire day, creating an early pulse of muscle building activity that, when repeated at subsequent meals, leads to greater overall muscle retention and growth. Another important reason to prioritize protein at breakfast is appetite regulation. Protein is the most satiating macronutrient, meaning it helps control hunger more effectively than carbohydrates or fats. By stabilizing blood sugar and providing a steady stream of amino acids, a protein-rich breakfast reduces mid-morning energy crashes and helps prevent overeating later in the day. For athletes or anyone engaged in regular resistance training, starting the day with protein can also improve workout performance, especially if training occurs in the morning hours. Having amino acids already available in the bloodstream can minimize muscle breakdown during exercise and prime the recovery process immediately afterward. For older adults whose muscles are naturally less responsive to growth signals, this early dose of protein is even more critical. Muscles over 50 require a stronger anabolic stimulus to trigger synthesis, and a meaningful amount of protein in the morning helps overcome that resistance. The ideal range of 30 to 40 grams is not arbitrary. Studies have demonstrated that this amount consistently provides enough of the essential amino acid leucine to flip the switch for muscle protein synthesis in most adults. Consuming far less than this, such as 10 to 15 grams, often fails to reach the threshold needed to fully activate growth pathways. On the other hand, consuming far more than 40 grams at breakfast does not necessarily increase the response in a single meal because the synthesis machinery has an upper limit. What matters is hitting the right dose regularly and combining it with additional protein pulses later in the day. Practical options for a high-protein breakfast include eggs with yogurt, a smoothie made with protein powder and milk, lean meats, or plant-based combinations like tofu with whole grains. The source matters less than the total amount and quality of protein consumed. By ensuring that the first meal of the day carries this protein load, you not only protect against overnight muscle loss, but also establish a rhythm where muscle protein synthesis is triggered early, creating a foundation for better recovery, strength gains, and long-term muscle health throughout adulthood. And aging using protein before and after workouts ensures that amino acids are available during periods of highest muscle sensitivity, supporting both reduced breakdown during exercise and enhanced repair afterward. When you consume protein 1 to 2 hours before training, digestion releases amino acids into the bloodstream just as your muscles are entering the stress of exercise. This steady supply can limit how much muscle tissue your body needs to break down for fuel, creating a more favorable balance between synthesis and degradation even before you finish your last set. After exercise, muscles become far more receptive to nutrient uptake. The cellular machinery responsible for muscle protein synthesis is activated, and it responds best when the necessary building blocks are readily available. Providing protein soon after training takes advantage of this increased sensitivity, driving faster and more efficient repair of the small tears and stress created by lifting, sprinting, or any form of high-intensity effort. Rather than seeing pre- and post-workout protein as competing options, it is better to view them as complementary. Pre-workout protein helps protect muscle from excessive breakdown, while post-workout protein accelerates rebuilding and adaptation. This is particularly beneficial for people training multiple times per day, performing long or intense sessions, or engaging in sports that combine strength and endurance. Because recovery windows are shorter and nutrient timing plays a greater role, the actual amount needed for these meals is not excessively large. Around 25 to 40 grams of high-quality protein, whether from whole food or shakes, is sufficient to trigger a robust anabolic response for most adults. This amount ensures a high enough leucine content to flip the molecular switch for growth without overwhelming the body's capacity to use it in a single sitting. Consistently missing these opportunities means the stimulus from training is not fully supported by the raw materials needed for repair. Over time, this can slow progress in building muscle, reduce strength gains, and extend recovery periods. Including protein before training also provides a steady energy base because amino acids help stabilize blood sugar and prevent large fluctuations that can affect performance. Post-workout protein, on the other hand, aligns directly with the peak recovery window, supplying the amino acids needed when muscles are primed to absorb them and use them for repair. For people who train early in the morning, a pre-workout meal might be as simple as a shake or yogurt consumed 30 to 60 minutes beforehand, while those who train later in the day can include protein as part of a regular lunch or snack before heading to the gym. The post-workout meal can be flexible in timing as long as it falls within a few hours of finishing exercise. What matters is consistency rather than an exact minute-by-minute deadline. Combining these two timing strategies not only supports muscle growth, but also helps reduce soreness, maintain higher training frequency, and improve overall performance by ensuring recovery starts as soon as possible. The body is constantly turning over muscle proteins, and training shifts the balance toward breakdown. Supplying amino acids before and after ensures that the breakdown phase is limited and the rebuilding phase is fully fueled, leading to a greater net gain in lean mass and strength over weeks and months of repeated practice. Taking 20 to 40 grams of slow digesting protein before bed can support overnight muscle repair, particularly for older adults or anyone going through periods of intense training. When you sleep, your body enters a fasting state that typically lasts 7 to 9 hours, and during this time it still requires amino acids for essential functions such as maintaining immune health, repairing tissues, and fueling metabolic processes. If these amino acids are not available from food, the body draws them from its own muscle stores, gradually leading to breakdown over time. A serving of casein or other slow-digesting proteins before bed provides a steady release of amino acids throughout the night, which not only prevents excessive muscle breakdown, but also promotes muscle protein synthesis while you rest. Research shows that when protein is consumed shortly before sleep, rates of overnight repair and recovery improve, resulting in better preservation of lean mass and even increases in strength and muscle size when combined with resistance training. This approach is particularly important for older individuals because their muscles are less responsive to anabolic signals, meaning they need a stronger stimulus at each feeding opportunity to trigger growth. For athletes or people training multiple days per week, this pre-sleep protein can make the difference between adequate recovery and falling behind in adaptation. The amount of 20 to 40 grams is not chosen at random. It consistently provides enough of essential amino acid leucine to activate muscle building pathways without overloading the digestive system at night. Slow digesting proteins such as casein are ideal because they release amino acids gradually rather than all at once, keeping blood amino acid levels elevated for hours and ensuring a continuous supply for repair processes during the long period when no other food is consumed. Concerns that eating protein before bed will interfere with sleep are largely unfounded when the portion is moderate and primarily protein-based rather than heavy in fats or sugars. In fact, by stabilizing blood sugar and preventing drops in energy during the night, protein can sometimes improve sleep quality and reduce nighttime awakenings. For people who prefer whole foods rather than powders, options such as Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or a small portion of lean meat or tofu can provide a similar slow release effect. What matters most is that this intake becomes a consistent habit rather than an occasional addition, because muscles adapt over weeks and months to a steady supply of nutrients paired with a solid training stimulus. Those who skip this opportunity go a full night with no amino acids entering the bloodstream, leaving the body to meet its needs by breaking down its own tissues. Over time, this can make it harder to build or maintain muscle, particularly when other meals during the day are spaced far apart or lack sufficient protein. By adding a protein feeding before bed, you essentially extend the anabolic environment created during the day, giving your body another opportunity to repair the microtears caused by training and strengthen connective tissues and muscle fibers while you sleep. This strategy does not replace total daily protein requirements or the need to spread protein evenly through other meals, but it adds an extra layer of support that aligns with your body's natural overnight recovery cycle. Aiming for 0.4 to 0.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight at each meal ensures that muscle protein synthesis is triggered consistently rather than sporadically. This guideline comes from research showing that there is a threshold amount of high-quality protein required to fully activate the cellular pathways responsible for building new muscle proteins. Eating much less than this threshold results in only a weak anabolic signal, while eating far more at a single sitting does not significantly increase the response because the synthesis machinery becomes saturated. For example, a person weighing 70 kilograms, which is around 155 pounds, would need roughly 28 to 42 grams of protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner to reliably reach this threshold. By doing so, they provide 3 strong growth signals to their muscles over the course of the day, rather than relying on a single high-protein meal that only gives 1 signal. This approach works better because muscle tissue is constantly undergoing cycles of breakdown and repair, and each properly dosed meal provides the amino acids necessary to tilt the balance toward repair and growth. When protein intake at a meal falls well below the threshold, muscle protein synthesis barely turns on, leaving hours where the body remains in a relatively catabolic state. This pattern is common among people who eat a small, low-protein breakfast or lunch followed by a very large dinner. Even if the total daily protein adds up to a reasonable number, most of that protein is delivered in one big spike, which the body cannot fully use for building new muscle at once. Instead of being maximally incorporated into tissue, the extra amino acids are simply oxidized for energy or used in other metabolic pathways. By spacing intake into multiple meals that each hit the target amount, the body gets repeated opportunities to build and repair, and these repeated pulses add up over time to greater gains in lean mass and strength. This dosing strategy is especially critical for older adults whose muscles require a stronger signal to trigger synthesis because of anabolic resistance. In these cases, hitting the higher end of the range at each meal, closer to 0.6 grams per kilogram, ensures that the leucine content of the meal is high enough to flip the molecular switch for growth. Younger individuals or those very sensitive to training may see good results closer to the lower end of the range, but the principle remains the same. Every meal should be an opportunity to provide a meaningful anabolic stimulus, not just a snack that barely registers at the cellular level. This approach is flexible and does not require obsessive counting of grams at every meal, only an understanding of what typical food portions provide. For instance, a palm-sized piece of chicken breast or a scoop of high-quality protein powder is roughly 25 grams. A cup of Greek yogurt with nuts can provide 20 or more. And combining plant proteins such as beans with whole grains can easily reach 30 grams or more when portioned correctly. The key is to structure meals so they consistently meet or exceed the threshold rather than relying on chance or convenience. Over time, consistently triggering muscle protein synthesis at each meal improves recovery, supports strength training adaptations, and prevents the slow decline of lean mass that occurs when the body spends long stretches of the day without enough amino acids to build new tissue. This regular stimulation works in concert with total daily protein goals, training intensity, and adequate rest to create an optimal environment for building and maintaining muscle throughout adulthood and into older age.